done it. I mean, that he could have locked himself in the bag. He physically could have locked himself.
We've gone over that pretty
probably
so far, yeah.
Yeah. But, like, why would you? And that's the thing we've been struggling with in this episode.
Well, there's a lot of things that
much.
people do that I really, really don't understand.
I mean...
Reality TV, for one. I don't understand why people do that.
Doing it or watching it or whatever. But,
yeah, I mean, I think it was hard enough... Watching those videos was really interesting because it was really hard for them to willingly get themselves into the bag. Now, unconscious, like, with some work, you could probably get somebody in a bag, unconscious or dead, but an unwilling participant who was, like, live and conscious,
no,
it'd be impossible to get them in the bag. Impossible.
No, because you could, I mean, even at gunpoint, not flailing resistance, but you could just not be flexible.
I don't fit. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. I don't fit. It's weird. I don't fit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you know, kind of like OJ, you know? The glove just doesn't fit.
So weird. The glove just doesn't fit me. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know how to put a glove on or something. It's crazy.
Well, yeah, he didn't even know what a glove was.
Yeah, I've never seen this before. Yeah. One idea I did have, again, that kind of went back to that, like, spy obsession, was that, like, maybe for some reason somebody else was on accident even killed him, you know, that they were like, all right, we're going to do this training of let's get you in the bag and you'll train on how to get out of it. I'll let you out. Don't worry.
Oh, his chav buddy told him this is what you should do.
Well, that's actually
kind of... bungled it?
That's kind of what I was thinking is my most likely scenario is that he was you know, playing some sort of a game with one or two friends, you know, and his friends were, you know, probably, you know, D-bags. We knew people like this when we were teenagers.
It's the British version of D-bag.
Chad, yeah, okay.
Chav.
They were chavs. Okay, they were chavs. And he's like, yeah, you know, I kind of like, you know, want to do this Houdini thing in the bag, and would you guys lock me in? Okay, sure. And then if I can't get out in like a minute, would you let me back? Oh, well, of course, yeah. And because they're chavs, they look at each other and snicker and say, we're going to go to the pub for a pint. Mm-hmm. See you soon, you know, and they leave, and they come back, and he's dead.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, you know, oh crap, and then they wipe the place down and leave.
Well, even
I could totally see that happen.
Well, I mean, even if we could go with the actual theory of it really only took him like 2 to 3 minutes to suffocate in there, you know, suffocation is oftentimes a really quiet thing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it could have been that they were like, okay, yeah, Gareth, we'll lock you in the bag for your big spy training thing, no problem. Sure, just, you know, give a holler when you need us to let you out or whatever.
We'll be in the other room.
Yeah, and then, you know, 20 minutes later, they're like, boy, he's been in there a long time. Gareth?
Yeah.
Gareth?
Yeah. Dude?
Uh-huh.
Oops. Okay, you better leave. I mean, it could really be something as simple as that. It's not a super satisfying answer, but it could be.
It's not, but, you know, it seems most likely to me.
Yeah.
That's probably what happened.
And there was the other thing that I'll bring up real quick before we go into the really fun stuff that Steve hates, is that there was reportedly an incident at an unspecified amount of time prior to Gareth's death.
At some point in his career.
And it seems like it was a more recent thing, probably within a year, maybe, I don't know if I had to guess, that Gareth accessed confidential information regarding President or former President Bill Clinton. I think it's my understanding that what he accessed was a private guest list for an event that one of Gareth's friends was invited to attend, and like Gareth's friend wanted to see the guest list, and so Gareth like hacked into the Clinton server and got the guest list
along with everybody else.
Yeah. So I don't I mean I don't.
It didn't make people happy.
Well, so like it obviously like that didn't make his supervisors happy, right?
No.
But also I don't totally understand the thought process behind that, but fine, whatever.
About them being unhappy about it?
No, about him doing that.
Or somebody wanting to have the guest list?
Well, or, you know, saying, oh, yeah, you want the guest list? Sure, let me just hack into this thing real quick and pull that for you. Like, you're a Secret Service, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Well, no, it might have been somebody who was not actually in MI6.
Right, but that's what I mean is that, like, if I'm an MI6 agent and my friend is like, hey, I got invited to this party, can you hack into a server and find the guest list for me? Well, your supervisors probably won't be very happy with you, but you can do it anyway. I would be like, no.
You don't know that he hacked. There's nothing about hacking or anything. I mean, probably
he literally could have had access to it, but was not supposed to be accessing it through his normal.
It could have been that. The thing about it is MI6 is the big thing is they probably read Clinton's emails all the time. They probably read everything.
Well,
and so that was the big dirty secret is they're reading the president's emails.
It's described as like an unauthorized access to confidential information. So you're right. It could have been that he didn't hack it, but he gained access to something he was not supposed to have access to.
And worst of all, shared it with the outside world.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe his supervisors ordered the hit to shut him up or punish him for something.
And they decided to do it in a really low-profile, stealthy kind of way.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah. That's why all the clothes were there. They were like, also, we'll make it.
Sent a woman in a blue dress over. She left all her clothes, and then they stuffed him in the bag. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this sounds very Clinton-esque.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. Or it's because he'd been working with the NSA and FBI to surveil Russia.
Yeah, and the Ruskies did him in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's what we might know on this. It's Steve's favorite stuff.
We've heard so much Russia hacking crap lately.
I know. But most of this information...
You're not tired of it? Are you really tired of it?
Oh, I am
really?
so tired of it.
So most of this information comes from the Daily Mail and a defected KGB agent named Boris...
Of courses?
Kapikov? Kapikov.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're going to call him Boris.
Karpachov?
Let's call him Boris.
Boris.
Yeah.
And in August of 2015, the Daily Mail reported that Gareth had been working with FBI and NSA agents to track cash flow out of Russia. And according to Boris, the SVR, which is like the secret
police,
the successor
police,
to KGB,
was responsible for Gareth's death because they had failed to blackmail him into becoming a double. He already knew who the Russian spy inside of GCHQ was, and basically that they would have to kill him to keep him quiet.
What a smart thing to say to the Russians.
And Boris said that they apparently did via an untraceable poison introduced via his ear.
This reminds me of this old Jack Handy saying. Remember Jack Handy?
Oh, yeah.
Says, he says, I think if you were an Indian way back in the old days and the Spanish conquistador came up to you and demanded to know where the gold was, I don't think it would be a good idea to say, I swallowed it, so sue me. Kind of a similar thing, you know.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that he said, I know who the rat is.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it, huh?
Well, I mean, I think it's possible. Probably the phrasing was more like, I know you already have somebody in there, so no. Right? I mean, still not smart, but probably not so much like, no, I already, I know.
Well, no.
Piss off, it's fine, go away.
Yeah.
Well, it could have been something more on the order of, and this actually does sometimes happen in the real world when Gareth, looks at a bunch of stuff and puts two and two together and says, and then goes to his boss and says, you know what, I have proof here that we have a mole in the organization. But unfortunately for Gareth, the boss is the mole. Mm-hmm. And such things have actually happened, in the intelligence world. And so maybe that's what did him in. But still, I don't think it was them because that's it's just not a low-profile way to do it.
But the thing is that the Russians at times can be weirdly petty about stuff.
Uh-huh.
They can take what they consider what seems like the smallest of slights and go to some weird lengths. I was listening to something the other day. You guys, have you heard of the Maginski Act?
Yeah.
No,
Okay, so Maginski was he was an accountant, I believe. He was Russian.
I thought he was a Russian lawyer. But,
he was. You're right. He was. Yeah. He was a lawyer, and so he's working for a guy who is Kenneth Duberstein, I believe is how you pronounce his name.
I think that Duberstein.
Yeah, Duberstein. That sounds better. But anyway, so he does something. Duberstein does. Peeves the Russians off. They tell him you can't come back in the country. His lawyer's like, that's really weird, looks into it. The Russians then arrest him, and he dies mysteriously in custody.
That's the lawyer.
That's the lawyer, yeah. So now Duberstein is going around saying, hey, all these countries, you got to stop the Russians from doing this. And every time that he gets some country to pass the act that he is pushing, the Russians do something in retaliation to him over and over and over. Like, apparently they just recently, they put him on the top 10 list for Scotland Yard. Like, oh yeah, no, he's a serial killer. He's crazy. It's just
of course they did.
Weird.
But they got him excluded from the U.S. for just a little bit.
Yeah.
They did.
But they do weird
But
I consider it petty acts because
they do that.
It's such a knee-jerk reaction. Like I really do not believe that the Russians killed this guy. But my point is, it's entirely possible because they kind of just they're harebrained at times.
Not if it was over a mole in that was in MI6 or GCHQ. I mean, not then, because you got to do a really low-profile hit then.
Well,
you don't want to call a lot of attention to the fact that you just whacked the guy that knows the mole.
The whole mole angle didn't come out for a long time.
Yeah, and it probably was not. It probably wasn't the thing. But I mean, if the Russians whacked him, they had to have a reason for it. Okay, either he knew about a mole in GCHQ, or they tried to recruit him and he said no.
Or maybe both.
But
I almost wonder if it's that combination of they killed him and locked him in the bag, and they're like, "Okay, Boris, you will come back."
It could be that
pick up
it
the
was
bag.
a scare tactic.
No, they were like, "Boris, you will pick up the bag and drop it in the river, and it will be like you never existed, and that's fine, right?" And then
Boris gets run over by a bus,
or just forgets about it, or can't gain access to the apartment again for whatever reason.
Boris left the key in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, and then suddenly, or he's like, "Okay, I'll be back in like 12 hours. It's fine." Or like 12 days, it's fine. And then the police come and discover it before he goes to pick up the body. And I mean, there is a possibility of
this bag is supposed to be leak-proof.
I don't think
it's Italian now.
I don't think it'd be anything as dumb as just forgetting about it or losing the key.
No, I don't think so either.
But I can totally see where something totally unforeseen would happen. Like I said, he gets run over by a bus, and he's already, and maybe he's got the body in the bag in the bathtub, and he hasn't moved it yet, and his controller or whatever says, "Hey, did you take care of that situation?" And Boris says, Boris, realizing he hasn't quite taken care of that last little detail, says, "Oh yeah, it's all taken care of, not to worry." Then he gets run over by a bus.
Yeah.
But his controller doesn't worry because that last little detail has all been taken care of as far as he knows.
Right.
But, whoopsie, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, if the Russians did do it, they must have meant to come back and get the body.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, the other thing that is like we kind of glossed over this, but it's a little weird that, it was August, but also the heat was like cranked up pretty high in the apartment, which aided in the accelerated decomposition of the body.
Wait, do we know what the heat was turned up to?
No.
Okay. The heat was on is all we know.
But in August?
But
why was the heat on in August?
But in the middle of the night, I have woken up in August when it'd been warm and then it cooled off at night, and I shut the windows and had contemplated turning on the heat. I mean, this does happen, so it's possible that he had a heat pump or some kind of automated system that was set to 75 or whatever the equivalent is in C. But
I agree, except for that the police did bring it up as like being weird and suspicious.
Well, they also brought up his internet searches and the women's clothes and anything else that they could sling at this story to say, not our fault, somebody else is weird.
That's true, but it did, his body was more decomposed than you might otherwise expect from that timeline. And I think it's my understanding they came up with the timeline based on other activities that they could corroborate,
like
not just
web
like
activity, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or like talking to people or being at work or whatever.
Well, what I find really funny is that you don't see a whole lot of information about is the fact that this was not the first welfare visit that had been done to his apartment.
True.
Like on the first day that he didn't make contact, they sent the cops over, and then they waited a full another week before doing it again. Like that's hinky.
Yeah. There's a lot. It's just like there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on with this case, which is why it's such a good unsolved mystery. I always favor the Russian angle just because it's like the most fun for me as an American, as a true American citizen.
Or not necessarily even the Russians. I mean, there's other intelligence services out there.
Oh, for sure.
There's other bad actors out there of all kinds.
Yeah.
I mean, and a lot of the cast
North Koreans.
Could have been the North Koreans, but it could have been some private parties because I mean, the whole Russia thing, cash flows out of Russia. It's not all just KGB. There's a lot of
it was the Lake
parties.
City Quiet Pills, I'm pretty sure.
It could have been that,
Yeah.
But there's no reason to kill him and stuff him in a bag unless you plan on moving him.
I agree, but I also don't think there's any reason to lock yourself in a bag.
Yeah, I'm scared of Vikings.
Unless
it was the Vikings who did it.
Well, another reason I could think that's non-kinky would be if he was on a Houdini kink, or excuse me,
kick.
If he was on a Houdini kick.
Yeah.
And because Houdini did do stuff like that.
He did.
So maybe he thought he'd go all Houdini on the world. Maybe that was his hobby. Maybe he had this new hobby of doing Houdini.
Seems like he would have been doing
a
lot of internet searches for that, though.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, how to escape a locked bag.
Yeah.
That would be the first thing I would Google.
Me too.
I don't know. Maybe he carefully hid all that stuff.
Yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah.
But not his bondage stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, not all the weird stuff.
I don't know. What I mean.
I think most likely is that there was another party involved and they locked the bag for him at his behest and just left him there. Oopsie.
Yeah.
And then just panicked and wiped the place down a bit and left.
Yeah,
Which is kind of stupid and sad and tragic because who knows? Maybe they could have called 911 and gotten an ambulance there and maybe saved him.
They could have cut him out of the bag.
I think something similar to that. I mean, I had seen allusions to the fact that he had a lady over and they were playing some kind of kinky game, which is fine, but she may have, just as Joe said, locked the bag for him. And when he stopped responding, was like, oh crap, I can't get it open, which would explain why everything, either way, whether it's Joe or I, would explain why things were wiped out. Oh God, I have to get out of here. I got to get my So wipe the bag down, wipe the lock down, the tub, every surface that I think I came in contact with, vacuum on the way out the door.
Yeah, the fact that he's got left no fingerprints or DNA on the lock kind of indicates to me that somebody else put the lock on.
And then
not entirely, because while not easy, could have pinched the lock through the bag, the body of the lock, the square of it. He could have held on to that while he was threading it around. Now, that's not a lot of room to move, and I understand that.
Why,
but it's possible.
Why?
I have no idea why, unless he couldn't get his hand out of the bag enough. And that was the only way he could get purchase was to grab it through the bag.
No, I see what you're saying now, but I mean, still, why? Because, I mean, at some point, the lock had to be transported over to the bag and put on the bag. Is he going to wear gloves for that? And if so, why? Why?
I don't know. Maybe he was clean freaking. He was wiped it off because it was greasy and grimy because he's sweating. I have no idea. I don't know why you get into a bag.
No, it is. I know it's this whole thing. I understand. This is a mystery that's actually been suggested to us. I don't know how many times by how many people. But I mean, it's obviously a really popular mystery because it is very inexplicable.
Yeah.
There's none of it makes any sense. I mean, murder makes no sense.
Yeah.
Kinky sex makes no sense. None of it does.
None of it. Not a single thing about this case makes sense at all.
No, not really. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we just agree that none of this makes sense and it's crazy and stupid and we'll never know anything.
Yeah, I would say that if you're still investigating it out there over in Britain, if you want to go my cockeyed theory of the Russian agent or whatever agent bagged the body and then got run over by a bus. Well, you might want to check on accidents around that time period. Which Soviet diplomats, for example, got run over by a bus?
Yeah, let's do that.
I mean, that might be an angle to pursue.
Yeah, pretty sure.
That's
about the only kills people.
That's the only angle I can think of, really. Other than that, I'm kind of at a dead end here.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess that does it for this mystery.
Oh, damn, it's over already?
Yeah, if you want to see that video that we were talking about earlier, or some of our other research, you can go ahead and find that on our website, which is thinkingsidewayspodcast.com. On that website, you can also find links to merch, episode lists. You can listen to the episodes. You can, do lots of other really fun things on it, too. Moving on. You can also connect with us via social media. You can do that on Facebook, where we've got a group and a page. If you want to join the group, you just have to answer the questions. They're really easy. It'll take 2 seconds.
Like, what's your favorite color?
Yeah, those are the questions.
What's the average airspeed of a swallow?
Those are the questions, yep. You can
what
connect...
color is the white rabbit?
Yeah.
You can connect with us on Twitter, where we are Thinking Sideways. And you can connect with us on Reddit, where our subreddit is Thinking Sideways. You know where you're finding us, where you're listening to us. It might be iTunes, it might be Stitcher, it might be Google Play, it might be who the heck knows what else. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and leave a rating and a review on our show. It helps other people find us. Our iTunes reviews are going awesome, so let's keep that up.
Yeah, by the way, upvote the 5-star reviews and downvote the 1-star reviews.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah, do it, please.
And then the other way that you can, that email address is thinkingsidewayspodcast@gmail.com. all of that having been said, I think we're going to go ahead and bag this one.
You are the master of punditry. Yeah.
Mom jokes. Yeah. Zip it up. What's up? Come up with one. You can do it.
Oh, let's see. I'm going to north face it. No, that's
nope.
a terrible
you locked it in.
No,
dang it.
That's not mine, though.
Oh, okay. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.
Toodaloo.
We got to work on Joe's puns.
Yeah, I'm going to go pack my bags.
Thinking sideways.
I don't understand.
Does not compute.
You never know.
Insufficient data to formulate a reply.
What?
Stories of things we simply don't know the answer to.
Hey, this is Steve. As always, I'm joined by...
Oh, Devin.
And Joe.
And this is Thinking Sideways, the podcast.
Oh.
Woo!
I know, it's crazy, but it is.
Yeah.
And we've got another fairly unsolved mystery, I would say. But wait, Joe, what's your patented line? Tonight we're going to solve it.
We're going to crack this one like a walnut.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not on my top game today.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Before I get going into this story is a listener suggestion, and it's actually one of the early suggestions that we got. But I've held off because I kept going to it and then coming back to it. Really trying to wrap my head around this story because it's a little hard. It's outside of my wheelhouse.
He did, on our little spreadsheet of listener suggestions, it said, Steve is doing the show, right?
I know.
But we've been looking at
Playing
it.
dibs on it.
Dibbed it a year ago.
Yeah.
And we've just been, sitting on it and waiting.
Well,
And
because
finally,
we're in the pay of the government. That's why we've been sitting on it.
Yeah.
But the check did not arrive this month, so screw you, Uncle Sam.
Yeah. Well, regardless, I do want to say thanks to Ed who emailed this story in. It's definitely an interesting one.
Oh, yeah.
And what we're going to talk about is Gary McKinnon. And he is...
The Gary McKinnon?
The Gary McKinnon.
Ah, okay.
And his story is a little hard to follow, but let's just we'll set it up and we'll do the best we can with this because there's a lot of UFO talk in this one.
There's a bit.
Just a little bit. Devin is very excited.
There's a lot of the whole story actually concerns more legal stuff than actual.
Well,
UFOs.
and I pruned some of that out. So
yeah. We don't need to go through all of his legal travails. Really.
No. Well,
let's say he's had quite a few of them.
Yeah, but let's just start here. So, the story with Gary McKinnon starts before 9/11 in this country happened.
2001.
What's that?
2001.
2001.
Yeah,
that is correct.
In case any of our listeners are not aware of. Sorry.
A few months after the World Trade Centers were attacked, a strange message appears on some U.S. Army computers, and it says, quote, "Your security is crap. I'm solo. I will continue to disrupt at the highest levels," unquote. Which really kind of bugged some people, since everybody is a little wigged out that we've had this giant quote-unquote terrorist attack at that point.
Yeah. In this case, McKinnon was doing them a favor by letting them know how, and the military is historically, their cybersecurity has sucked. I sure hope they clean up their act.
I hope so too, and we're going to get into
how bad
it was.
I want to tell our listeners about this really interesting book. It's called The Cuckoo's Egg by a guy named Cliff Stoll, Stoll, and he was working. I can't remember what East Coast university he was at. But he discovered somebody was getting into their system. And he was a Unix administrator, I believe. It's been a long time since I read the book. And that was in the old days of basically the DARPANET before we had the internet.
Right.
And so he traced it and he found that this guy was actually getting into their system through the computer system at a military base that was not far away that they were linked to. And so he was able to, by tracing it around, he actually traced this hacker to Germany. He goes to the military, and meets with the base commander at this base and to tell him, hey, your computers are being penetrated, people are looking at all your files. And the guy, who was like a colonel, said, so what? Why should I care?
That's forward
I
thinking.
certainly
right
hope
there.
they clean up their act a little better than that. But
I'm sure they have.
I'm sure they have.
And just for clarity's sake, is Solo the hacker name, or
Oh, yeah,
was
back
it
to this
referred
that
to
is
him
it.
being-
Solo was the name that was signed to the messages that were showing up
Okay.
in the military's computer systems with these little notes about how terrible they were.
Okay, so it's not him saying it's just me. I am Solo.
Right, he had an identity online.
It was Solo. Okay, got it.
And Solo, who was unknown at that point, was continuing to scan thousands of U.S. government machines, and as Joe had already alluded to, had found some really huge flaws in the security of all of their systems. Between February of 2001 and March of 2002, Solo broke into almost 100 PCs in the Army, Navy, Air Force, NASA, and the Department of Defense. Solo surfed around, evidently for a couple of months, copying files and passwords, and at one point he supposedly, and this, I couldn't find confirmation of this, but he supposedly brought down the U.S. Army's entire Washington, D.C. network, taking out about 2,000 computers, taking them offline for 3 days.
Wow.
Now, they say he did this by going in and monkeying with files and deleting files. There's some stuff where they say that he took out some defense network, like missile command stuff. But again, this is all listed in news reports. When I went digging to find out exact records and transcripts of what the government says he did, I couldn't find it. I went to the NSA and all these places trying to find anything, and they never mentioned this guy. So it's evidently all covered up.
That's
And
probably
Freedom
not
of
something they
Information
enjoy
Acts don't
talking
seem to be
about.
uncovering exactly what they say he did.
Well, they probably don't want to get too specific either.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Now, so this all happens, and at the time, U.S. Attorney Paul McNulty, he called this the biggest military computer hack of all time. This was in 2002.
This is that they know of.
That they know.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I bet there's been plenty of other great big ones they don't even know about.
Well, despite being so good at hacking into their systems, Solo evidently wasn't so good at covering his tracks because they relatively quickly figured out who he was, and they traced him back in March of 2002 to who he was, and it was a guy in the United Kingdom, in London, by the name of Gary McKinnon. He's a 36-year-old Scottish guy, and they sent the United Kingdom's National High-Tech Crime Unit to arrest him. Turns out that what he was doing is he didn't have a job at the time, so he was bored. So he was just surfing around on the net, and he was spending his days, as he says, indulging his obsession with UFOs.
Yeah, because he's convinced that there's all sorts of alien technology out there that we're hiding from the people. Yeah.
When he was first caught, he was offered a chance for a plea bargain. Do a couple of years and we'll just let you go. And he refused to do that. He said he was threatening to release the information that he had discovered in order to get out. So basically, no, I've got a bigger bargaining chip. The U.S. government didn't think so. So they continued to try to pursue him. They were trying to extradite him to the States.
Yeah, and it was looking like it was going to happen, but eventually the government put the nix on that.
Yeah.
But let's get into the UFO stuff.
Well, yeah. So he's thinking about UFOs. So that's his reason for doing it. McKinnon here, he claims that the UFOs were the main reason that he hacked into their systems. And he was convinced that the U.S. government was hiding alien anti-gravity technology and devices, which he was planning to find and uncover and release for the benefit of humanity.
If the United States of America has technology like anti-gravity devices, advanced energy weapons, etc., don't you think it'd be harder to hack their systems?
You would think.
you would think also that we would have things like floating battleships and and high energy laser devices.
Well, we
and
do
stuff like
have all those things.
well, sort of. I'm not talking float. I mean battleships that float in the air. And,
yeah,
I mean,
no, we have those things. They're just hidden.
Oh, I see. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
That's what clouds are.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So clouds are just battleships. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually, that would be a really, really cool, badass system.
Well, haven't you seen what's the Avengers? They hide their floating ship in a cloud constantly. I mean, that's kind of where they're going. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Sorry.
So here's a quote from McKinnon. He says, "I knew the government suppressed anti-gravity, UFO-related technologies, free energy, or what they call zero-point energy. This should not be kept hidden from the public when pensioners can't pay their fuel bills." So he's got a very altruistic reason, but he was still committing a crime because he was hacking into a system.
Yeah.
Evidently what happened is at one point he had read, and I'd never heard of this book, he had read the Hacker's Handbook, which evidently gave him the basis of how to do all these hacks, and he used the techniques that were in the book and he applied them to the U.S. government system to gain access, and he found serious access, obviously, because he kept getting in. So the question is, okay, well, if he got all this access, what did he actually find? Did he find what? There's got to be something that he thought was such good bargaining chips. Well, one of the things he found was an Excel spreadsheet. An Excel spreadsheet that was titled Non-Terrestrial Officers.
Did he download this spreadsheet?
No, he didn't.
Wow.
He just
that's a
looked
smart
at
move.
it.
He looked at it. And there's some issues with why he did some of the things the way he did, but
Well, you would think that he would have kept copies, huh?
Screenshots at least.
yeah. Well, this spreadsheet supposedly contained the names and ranks of U.S. Air Force personnel who weren't registered anywhere else, and it contained information about ship-to-ship transfers, but according to McKinnon, those were the names of ships that he didn't find listed anywhere else. Now,
Was it names like Enterprise and
Voyager.
Voyager or what's something? Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, now the thing is, when McKinnon says that it's non-terrestrial officers, when he uses that term, you could instantly think, well, he's saying that they're aliens. Well, he's not saying that it's aliens or that it's humans and aliens working together. He's saying that it's humans who are on non-terrestrial based ships. So they are in space.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does when you read into it that way. But
I mean, have we not all seen the true life documentaries of Star Trek?
and Star Wars. That's absolutely true. And so, I'm buying it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's what happens is when he was detected, when they found him, this is how they figured out what was going on, is McKinnon was Defoe, and according to McKinnon, and this is directly from an interview, this is what he says. He says, a NASA photographic expert said that there was a Building 8 at the Johnson Space Center where they regularly airbrushed out images of UFOs from high-resolution satellite images. I logged on to NASA and was able to access this department. They had huge, high-resolution images stored in their picture files, and they had filtered and unfiltered, or processed and unprocessed photos. So this is what he's saying, that this is his basis of, this is what I found, and this is obvious why it's real. He continues on. My dial-up 56K connection was very slow trying to download one of these files.
Shocking.
Yeah. As this was happening, I had remote control of their desktop, and by adjusting it to 4-bit color and low screen resolution, I was able to briefly see one of these pictures. It was a silvery, cigar-shaped object with geodesic spheres on either side. There was no visible seams or riveting. There was no reference to the size of the object, and the picture was taken, presumably, by a satellite looking down on it. The object didn't look man-made or anything like what we had created. Because I was using a Java application, I could only get a screenshot of the pictures. It didn't go into my temporary internet files, and at my crowning moment, someone at NASA discovered what I was doing, and I was disconnected.
Oh, dang.
I don't know. Wait, but he got a screenshot of it, so
Yeah.
it should be on his computer.
All of his computers, of course, were seized
Sure, but
and then not returned.
So he didn't like store it on a thumb drive or something like that?
No, he didn't make copies. Evidently, he wasn't. Didn't have the
Floppy.
foresight for that.
would have been a
Yeah.
floppy, right? At that point.
Possibly. It could have been a CD. 2001 could have been CDs.
Yeah, but not a flash drive.
No,
That's
not
a
a
good
flash
point.
drive.
That's a good point.
Zip
yeah.
drive, maybe.
I forgot
Maybe
about that.
old
yeah.
zip drive. Here's my. I don't want to poo-poo what Gary says he found, but I do have an issue with the image that he says he saw when he took it to a 4-bit resolution at low resolution, or 4-bit color at low resolution.
Yeah.
That is really, really rough. You're talking only 4 colors.
Yeah.
That is hard to see anything at. So I question his descriptions of being silvery and smooth and not seeing rivets.
Yeah, there's no way.
Yeah. Huh?
Well, yeah, at that kind of res, it's going to be near impossible to
Yeah.
see any kind of detail. Plus, he's on such a slow connection, I can understand, it's like when, back 10, 15 years ago when you're waiting for an image to load and just line by line
I
it's
know.
showing up on your monitor
It's-
and you're waiting.
It's hard to remember those days when modems were so much slower than they are today.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's hard to keep that in perspective.
Yeah.
So, obviously, as we said, he got busted. In November of 2000...
Wait, I'm sorry. Is that all he found? He
Well, he found the
actual
ship-to-ship
spreadsheet.
transfers.
And he found the picture.
And he found the pictures.
The one low grainy picture. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
of something.
Okay.
Those are the
sticking.
things that he says he found.
Now,
Okay.
he didn't say what kind of satellite photo it was. Was it a military spy satellite?
He didn't
Or was
say.
it- Yeah.
I've never found what kind of satellite. I don't think he knows. He found
Uh-huh.
it in a folder that said filtered and unfiltered. And that's all he found. And filtered could have been as innocuous as they were filtering it to adjust colors or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So that it was accurate photos and not the grass is blue and the brown buildings are red. I mean, it could have been as simple as that, but we don't know. But it could have been. But he gets busted, and he was indicted by a federal grand jury from this country. And that indictment contained 7 counts of computer-related crime, each of which had a up to 10-year jail sentence attached to him.
Wow.
So if he'd got extradited to this country, he potentially could have been locked up for 70 years.
That's that's something that our federal prosecutors do a lot. By the way, a little aside.
Throw
here.
the book.
Well, they throw so many charges at you that you reasonably, and this is I think a pretty troubling thing that they do these days. It's a routine thing. They'll throw so many charges at you on the theory that, well, a reasonable jury will say, well, we're not really sure, but you must be guilty of something, so we'll find him guilty of this one charge at least. So that
We'll
many
get
charges,
you for something,
Yeah,
even if it's not the right
they
thing.
are going to get you for something, and it's kind of appalling actually.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's a little bit.
So much for my little editorial.
That's okay.
But, yeah.
Okay, well, it took 10 years for this whole thing to be kind of put to bed, because he fought for 10 years extradition
Wow.
to the States.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it kind of is. Now, the UK finally decided that even though they had signed what was called the Extradition Act 2003, which was something that, and I had to go straight to Wikipedia to kind of get this. It was implemented in 2003, and it's an extradition treaty with the U.S. where the U.S. did not need to provide contestable evidence. In other words, they didn't have to provide ironclad evidence. They could just say, we have some evidence, and we want to extradite you.
So they didn't have to prove guilt to extradite to prove guilt again.
Correct.
They just had to say, you might be guilty.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Interesting, okay.
We want to bring him here to put him on trial to prove if he really is guilty or not. Which is a little, that's kind of a disconcerting treaty to have in place.
Yeah.
But, everybody was panicked at that point, with the war on terror's begun, as it was called in this country. And so they were willing to do whatever they, quote unquote, had to keep everybody safe.
But I can see that this could take 10 years. I mean, just
Oh yeah.
The argument of like him being a citizen of Scotland, right, in the UK, committing a crime that is technically...
It's technically an international crime,
Right.
but it's a computer crime.
But so, like, was it committed in America? Was it committed, was it committed against America? Certainly.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I can totally see all those arguments.
Yeah.
Well, plus
Crazy.
The legal system grinds very slowly.
It does.
Oh, yeah.
It does. And there was a lot of high-ranking officials who had this on their desk when they were elected in England, who just let it sit there until in 2012 it finally was addressed. Mm-hmm. Somebody was like, we just got to take care of this. And what they did is they finally decided that they weren't going to extradite him because they believed that it was so likely to cause McKinnon such mental hardship that the likelihood of him doing harm to himself, also known as suicide, was too high a risk, and they said, no, we're not going to do it. So they're worried about his health and well-being, and figuring, well, if we send him overseas, he's going to do something pretty extreme to himself before or while there.
I've got to remember that next time they're trying to extradite me. I'm going to kill myself.
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. One of the things that really helped McKinnon with the extradition is that in 2008, somebody was watching interviews with him. There was a psychologist who, I think it was a psychiatrist or a psychologist, I don't remember which one.
Same thing, really.
Essentially. Who was watching him and watching his behavior and got in touch with him, brought him in and did tests and figured out that he has Asperger's. And I'm just... Can somebody help me here explain what Asperger's is? Because I'm not real good at this.
It's like a socially adept version, well, as socially as adept as you can be, of autism.
Mm-hmm.
People can still have social interactions. It's not like so disconnected like a lot of places on the autism scale are, but it's still autism. They describe it as like a very mild autism.
I was going to say high functioning version, I think is the way I've seen it described. But folks who have it tend to get very focused on things, which they used as an explanation of why Gary did what he did. He focused in and he just honed in.
I guess I don't know
went
that
after
you
it.
could really use Asperger's or really autism in general, but certainly it's odd to me that you could use Asperger's as a defense on why you committed a crime of any kind.
Yeah, I don't think so. I wouldn't.
Well, all I know is that it was one of the factors that they took into consideration, and that helped his case.
Certainly, to take a mental state into consideration. What was that, like the Snickers trial or whatever?
Oh,
right?
the Twinkie defense?
Yeah, the Twinkie defense. Like that.
The guy who shot Milk?
Yeah, like that worked. So obviously there's a precedent for like things that don't actually totally fit and making them fit. But this one in particular is odd to me. Also, just because I have a problem with what it implies about people with Asperger's.
Yeah.
But
no. You have a point there, and that's why I wanted help with this, because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to hit it on the head, and I don't think that we've probably nailed it as accurately as we should. But it's a good kind of soft overview of what it is.
If you don't know Asperger's, just look it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's Gary. So let's talk about the theories about what he might have actually found that would have freaked the U.S. government so much.
And he was never charged with anything, and he's a free man right now?
Well, he's a free man, yes.
I think he's a free man as long as he doesn't set foot in the U.S.
He doesn't set foot in the U.S., and he cannot use a computer that is connected to the internet. That is one of the stipulations.
Oh my God!
I mean, in the modern day.
In the modern day, he's walking around papers. He was on probation for a long time. Always had to check in every night at the police, and then had to go home. But he was a computer tech, is what he did for a living.
That's hard.
And so now he cannot touch a computer ever again that is on the internet. So, and that is really hard in a world like this. He's never going to hear this show unless somebody else downloads it for him.
Yeah, maybe somebody will download it and put it on his iPod for him.
Well,
and if that's the case, hi Gary.
But I can't even imagine.
All right. Well, let's do this. Let's go into some of these theories. Now, I've kind of just sussed this out to two sides of the story, or two sides of what he could have found.
It's true or it's not true?
Well, the things that he could have found, or, what he couldn't have found, essentially. But the problem is that this is a bit of a rat's nest. This could spin out. I mean, this is one of those stories, if we're going to go into hidden technology or alien technology, it's one of those ones that could just mushroom cloud out on us. So I'm trying to keep it focused in. So while there's a lot of things that people say he could have found, we're only going to kind of focus on a small number.
Okay.
So let's start off with the first one, which is that, according to some people, if it's real, McKinnon found proof that the U.S. government has been in contact with aliens for over 50 years. There's some points from official records and government documents and memoirs that are out there that people point to as kind of the tip of the iceberg, proving that this is the case. And one of those is President Ronald Reagan and his memoirs, or his diary and his notes. There's a quote from his personal diaries, which is out there. It's a book you can buy, but he says, and this is a line from it. It says, "Lunch with there in astronomy, etc., are like science fiction, except they're real. I learned that our shuttle capacity is such that we could orbit 300 people."
Yeah. But that's a little ambiguous, excuse me.
It is,
because
here's the part that's screwy with that. At the time, our space shuttles held a maximum of 8 people, and we had 5 of them. Mm-hmm. So that is 40 people.
Yeah.
So where were the other 260 going to go?
Well, but the statement that our shuttle capacity is such that we could orbit 300 people just means that we have enough shuttles and they can go often enough that if we had a place to put 300 people in orbit, then that would be kind of the max. In terms of the shuttle bringing them up there, taking them home, bringing supplies and spare parts and everything else. That's more likely what they were saying. Is that?
And that could very well be possible.
If we had a big ass space station.
Yeah, I don't know, but according to all of these people who are considered military and corporate whistleblowers, that's the phrase that I kept coming across. They're saying that we've got a highly classified fleet of aircraft carrier-sized anti-gravity vehicles that are currently operating in outer space.
Well, I want to say, first of all, if that's true, that's awesome. That's really awesome. I really want to believe that's true, so let's prove that this is true.
Okay. All right, we'll try and do that for you, Joe.
Yeah.
Well, I think we probably posted it on Facebook, but in the last month or so, there's been that huge development in propulsion systems for space, which is super interesting, and also one of those kind of weird, like, it so defies physics and so defies everything that like, how one could wonder how long have we actually had technology like this, or like, where is this technology very swiftly in huge leaps and bounds leading us? And I think that a lot of proponents of theories like this kind of argue that this is technology that the government has had for a long time and is like really ready to do some stuff with, and the population at large is ready to see that stuff happen, but that they're like trying to figure out a way to like explain how like humans came up with it by themselves. You know?
Yeah.
Complete with the Shatner weird hand things that I was just doing.
Yes.
I know, Yeah, that's possible if they're trying to like cover their tracks and cover the UFO connection by slowly dribbling the technology out and eventually arriving at that point.
What are cell phones if not alien technology, man?
Yeah.
Well, it's pretty alien to what I experienced when I was a kid. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Well, and this is the thing, is that, this is one of those things, these theories that McKinnon points to prove that, yes, we do have this technology that's available to give us this free, or basically free, or much cheaper and probably potentially cleaner energy sources than what we're using right now.
There's nothing cleaner than the sun, man.
No, well, here's the other thing that I keep wondering about. Okay, well, let's look on the flip sides. So let's say, we really do possess this technology. But what if that technology to operate it is super, super dirty compared to what we use now for propulsion of rockets and cars and all of that? Like, what if it requires some crazy nuclear reaction that just makes gads a waste?
Well, it's entirely possible. Actually,
Well, then maybe that's why they're not releasing it, because it's so dirty and it's so bad.
Yeah, I think that these